Perfecto. All right. So here we go with the presentation. Compartir. Okay. All right. So welcome everyone again to this webinar on reading strategies in the AP Spanish language class. And as I mentioned before, once again, these strategies can be adapted to pretty much any level, starting from Spanish 1. And the idea with this webinar is to share with you some strategies that are not very common, that we don't see as often, probably because many of them are just my invention and I came up with them and I use them in my classroom. But as always, I would like to share things that work in my class, things that motivate my students, encourage them to learn the language, and allow them to have some fun. Sometimes we think that because we're teaching the AP class, fun is overrated. And that's a big problem because it's just another Spanish class, is the next level. And who said that fun should be uh, neglected in these classes? So I try to keep it fun as well, as long as we are working in a way that is helping them understand and connect with the readings that we do in the class. If you're an AP teacher, you know very well that in the AP Spanish Language and Culture program, most of the books that we have access to are just a compilation of readings with a bunch of questions. And that's fine. You know, the AP exam is an exam where 50% of the exam is a multiple choice section, which doesn't make any sense to me or to many colleagues, but that's the reality. 50% of the exam is multiple choice, understanding readings and audios. Um, it doesn't matter if you can write pretty well, if you can speak really well in a conversation, or if you can present perfectly. That's just the other 50%, which doesn't really um, makes justice to the new approaches to teaching languages and to understand how people learns languages. So hopefully, sooner than later, this is going to change. And that's why I also like to share these activities, because they are out of the box. For those who are not part of my AP mentorship program, this is a program that I started 3 years ago, and we meet 8 to 10 times during the school year. We go over the different sections of the exam and we share strategies, activities, ideas. So far this year, we have completed 8 sessions and we still have 2 more sessions to go. But if you are not part of this program, which is free, gratis, no tienes que pagar, es gratis. If you're not part of that, please send me an email and I will make sure to include you. We only have 2 more sessions this year, but you can, take advantage of that the whole year and for all the sessions next year. So I'm gonna always keep it free. Okay. So this is the third year, and I'm very excited that every time, we have more and more people. I think at this point we have almost 2,000 people as part of the program. Um, and then again, many people watches the recordings because they cannot be in the live sessions, but the numbers are good. Okay, my friends, here we go. So my name is Diego Ojeda. For those of you who doesn't know me, probably a lot of you have no idea who this guy is, but my name is Diego Ojeda. I'm a Spanish teacher in Louisville, Kentucky. I've been teaching for 34 years, and out of those 34 years, 25 in the United States. I have been teaching the AP Spanish language class for the last 17, 18 years, and I have been teaching the AP Spanish literature and culture class for the last 13 years. And I always like to share with my colleagues things that we do in our classes that really encourage our students. So I'm a Spanish teacher. I keep teaching. This year, I'm teaching one section of language, AP language, one section of AP Lit, and two sections of Spanish 4. I'm also an author. I write books that I call comprehensible poetry books. And I have published 14 books so far that many teachers use in their instruction at different levels. And I invite you to use poetry in your classes because we usually just go with the stories or short novelas, but students really connect well with poetry. And I'm a presenter. So I've been presenting workshops, I've been presenting webinars at conferences, particular engagements for the last 15 years. So if you're interested in taking me to your school district, please talk to me. We can make it happen. Okay? So let's get started. The first thing is let's go beyond comprehension questions. Why? Because as I said at the beginning of the webinar, we usually find that these textbooks are full of questions, comprehension questions. Yes, sometimes they have little sections where they encourage the students to write, analyze in a essay, or maybe do a presentation, but we're heavy on comprehending, making sure that the students are understanding what they are reading. So we give them a bunch of comprehension questions, which I guess it's fine, and I guess the students, most of them won't complain, mm, just because, they know it's an AP class. They know that they are up to a lot of work, and in their minds, this is the way it should work. Um, and that's why also it's important to surprise them with a little things that are a little different here and there. So these strategies, these activities go beyond the comprehension questions, but help the students understand the readings. Okay. The main goal here is not just understanding the reading, but connecting with the reading. The AP program has 6 big uh, themes, topics, and each topic has subtopics. Okay, and then we do these readings, and not all the time we have the opportunity to uh, help our students connect with the readings. They're like, okay, fine, I'm going to read about beauty and aesthetics. I'm going to learn about what happened in Greece and how the media have influenced the view that we have in beauty. Okay, I'm going to learn about immigration, but most of the time is an outside view of the topic. And these activities want to connect the students with the readings, because when we're connected to something in a meaningful way, we can acquire it. And when we acquire it, we learn it. So we're talking about acquiring the language. So the activities need to be activities based on acquisition. Okay? Now I'm gonna say something that, if you have followed me for a few years, you're gonna be very surprised, because I have never said what I'm going to say next. But you keep teaching, you keep going every day, and you keep finding things, and you keep seeing how things work. And I'm a believer that we cannot marry to just one way. And this is the way I see things, and I'm just going to fight against those who doesn't see things the way I do, uh, because we're passionate about the way we teach. But I have always tried to keep an open mind. Sometimes it's not easy. I sweat a lot putting the next slide, but I'm going to share it with you. Vocabulary lists are okay. For years, during my presentations, my conferences, I will encourage teachers to not use vocabulary lists. Let's use comprehensible input, right? Okay, and that's fine. Maybe when we are talking about lower levels of instruction, we can focus on a set of words and make them work with comprehensible input. But in our AP classes, in more advanced classes, after 3, 4, Spanish 5, where the students need to acquire a larger amount of vocabulary, I believe and I have seen that when we provide a list of words prior to start working with them, it's a good thing for the students. Now, most of the books insist in giving a definition in the target language for each one of those words. And to our students, that can be frustrating because they don't understand the word. But okay, if they give them a synonym that they're familiar with, okay. But most of the times, those definitions are using words that they don't still don't know. So that can be frustrating. But the idea behind this is like, well, if you know the definition in the target language, then you're gonna learn better the word that you're trying to learn. Doesn't happen that way. So I started giving my students, this is the vocabulary, the most important vocabulary for this reading that we're going to work with. Uh, Here's the translation in English based on the context of the reading. But I don't stay there and I just don't do vocabulary activities. I start using that vocabulary. And that's the secret. The secret to acquisition is the use of that vocabulary in different ways throughout the lesson. We cannot pretend our students are going to be acquiring new vocabulary when we just read with them the first time, make them read, answer questions, go over the questions, go over the answers, and perhaps having them read the article again uh, to the class, taking turns, and then move on. No, we need to take this vocabulary and we need to work with it. That's the only way it's going to stick to their brain. So, for this particular matter, my friends, vocabulary lists are okay. Do not feel guilty. Feel guilty if you don't use a lot those words, if you don't put them in context, okay, in different activities. So, the activities that I'm going to present today, these are not activities that you have to do uh, all of them right away. Just do one activity for one reading. And then the next reading, try another one of the activities. But do not take 3 or 4 of these activities and do it in one reading because we don't have the time and we want to surprise the kids with something different and a different approach every time. Okay, so here we go with the strategies. So the strategy number 1, and I'm going to share with you in the chat the reading um, that we're going to be working with today. So in the chat, I'm going to put the link to that reading. Everyone should be able to open it. Okay, perfect. Please tell me in the chat if you were able to open that reading. Now, some of you are going to recognize this reading, and some of you are going to say, oh, this belongs to this book. Well, not. In reality, all those articles are taken from magazines, newspapers. So this was originally published on what we call in Latin America Infobabe. I prefer to say Infobabe because otherwise it sounds weird if I say Infobabe. When I said Infobabe in front of my students, and they're like, "What, Senor? What are you reading?" They said, "Okay, Infobabe. All right. Okay, you're saying that yes, you were able to open it. Now, the original article is very long, and it's very common that these textbooks they will cut the article. They will cut it and just give us, a piece, so it will fit the 2 pages that they have, um, you know, uh, for this specific activity. Okay, so you open it. Thank you very much. So we're going to start with the first activity, which is called reading the title. Okay, so one of the main problems that we have here is that our students usually skip reading the title of the articles that we present to them. It's just not important to them. It's just the title of the article. They assume that it doesn't have any importance. So this particular article is called El Circo Social abre puertas en barrios vulnerables. So the first thing that I ask my students is, okay, please check the reading and underline every time that you see a word from the article that appears, from the title that appears in the article. So, for example, El Circo Social in red, Circo Social in red, Circo Social, Circo Social, Barrio. Barrio was another word here, barrios vulnerables. Uh, Circo, not Circo Social, but just Circo Social. ¿Qué significa para vos el circo, barrio, vulnerable, and so on? Circo, circo, barrio, social, sociales. You're going to find that most of the times the words used in the title are words that have been repeated throughout the article. This gives an advantage to our students in the sense that, number one, they understand the importance of the title. If they understand the title, which is usually easy to understand to them rather than the word in a big context, then they can see again those words. When we ask them to let's find those words in the reading, we're making them work with the reading in a way that is not just the question, the comprehension question. They're going to kind of like use their hands to locate those words. And those students that are more inquisitive, they're going to be looking around those words to see if they can understand a little bit more. So, like, for example, Circo Social del Sur. We're not asking them to read the whole sentence, but they will do it by gravity. They're going to see that there are other words next to them. Aprendí, ¿por qué? So this is very simple. Reading the title and locating those words in the title. In the article, we underline them, we highlight them, we circle them, and when they are done, we can go ahead and have a discussion. Okay, en el primer párrafo, ¿qué palabras del título están en el primer párrafo? Oh, señor, sí, ¿cuáles? El circo social y el circo social. Muy bien. Entonces, ¿de qué crees que está hablando ese primer párrafo? Bueno, habla sobre el circo social, ¿verdad? Pero si vamos al párrafo número 7, tienes otra palabra, barrio y circo social. Entonces estamos conectando inicialmente circo social with barrio. So, el estudiante está aprendiendo en su cabeza que la lectura está hablando de un circo que está en el barrio y que tiene un carácter social. In other words, they start understanding the reading without even reading the paragraphs, just from paying attention on where those words in the title are located. So this is reading the title. Strategy number 2. For strategy number 2, key sentences. Okay, Canva gave me another S. This is supposed to be key sentences. So, oh, sorry. Key sentences. I'm going to go to this one. And here we go. Key sentences is in blue. So in key sentences, we are going to put in blue those sentences that we believe are important. So we have El Circo Social. We are already familiarized with El Circo Social because one was one of those words that is part of the of the title that we selected before. And then after that goes, fue para Franco Ortiz una escuela de vida. Y más adelante, lo invitó a tomar una clase en la escuela. Aprendió sobre superación. Pasó de jugar a pensar porque le dio herramientas. If you see, these key sentences are preceded most of the times by a verb. So I will tell my students, let's focus on the verbs in each one of the sentences and let's underline the whole sentence when it makes sense with the verb that precedes um, or is after the sentence. So it's kind of like another step. It's not just understanding one word or working with one word, but we're going to start working with sentences that are going to be key. If we take these sentences, then el circo social fue para Francisco Ortiz una escuela de vida. And here, una clase en la escuela circense del Circo Social del Sur. Con el circo social aprendí sobre superación y así pasó de jugar a pensar en el arte del circo, en el circo social porque dio herramientas que no aprendió en la escuela primaria. If we focus on the verbs and those sentences that, are heavy on these verbs, we're going to understand better each one of the little paragraphs here and the whole idea behind the reading. So my advice will be for those key sentences, I'm going to ask the students, okay, let's focus on 2 or 3 verbs per paragraph. It depends how long is the paragraph. And let's choose, sentences, random sentences from the paragraph that are preceded by a verb. And then they're going to, be working with those particular sentences like chunks instead of working with the whole paragraph right away. The strategy number 3 is called create an image. And this is very simple. On creating an image, we want the students to, next to each one of the paragraphs, what I do is because these articles are taken from magazines or taken from newspapers, I always go on the internet and find the article and print the article on paper. And I know that the article is on the book, but I print it on paper and I leave some space in between the paragraphs. And I ask the students to create an image to kind of like illustrate each one of the paragraphs of the reading. So if we go back to the reading, let's try to imagine, let's try to think what image should we use to illustrate each one of the paragraphs. Like the first paragraph, el circo social fue para Francisco Ortiz una escuela de vida, encontró una mirada distinta del mundo y una vocación. Este joven nació en la villa 2124 de Barrancas, tiene 11 hermanos y desde niño trabajó como albañil con su papá. Cuando tenía 13 años, una persona pasó por el lugar donde él se encontraba con sus amigos y lo invitó a tomar una clase en la escuela circense Circo Social del Sur. Se acercó de curioso y desde ese día no dejó de hacer circo. Right in between these 2 paragraphs, they're going to illustrate that something that belongs to that particular paragraph. And you're going to say, okay, there's a bunch of ideas there that they can illustrate. Yes, and that is the point. You and I can watch the same movie, but that movie is going to cause a different impression to you and a different impression to me. You're going to remember different things from the movie that I'm going to remember because we have a different view. Things are differently meaningful. So a student could easily just draw un circo social. Another student could draw la clase en la escuela circense. Someone else can draw Franco and 11 siblings, which is fine. Why? Because then they exchange the papers and they see what the other person drew. They see the drawing, they go to the paragraph, they find that part in the paragraph that corresponds to the image. They are working with the reading. They are understanding the reading, not just through the meaning of the words, but also through images. And how powerful is that? Because that's going to stay in their brain. Next time, when the students go ahead and read the article without illustrations, they're going to see those illustrations in their heads. They're going to be here. It's the same, my friends, like when you talk to someone that causes a great impression on you. The next time you're not with that person, but you think about that person, you see images of that person. Maybe their look, maybe the way they walk, maybe their smile. I don't know, but you have an image. So we're working with the reading in different ways. So that one was creating an image. Remember, we create images for each one of the paragraphs. This reading is a little annoying in the sense that the paragraphs are very short, okay? But most of the readings usually have longer paragraphs. And in one of the pages of the textbook, probably you'll find readings with 6 paragraphs at the most. But it's important to let them choose whatever they want to draw from that particular paragraph and then to present to the class or exchange the paper with other students. It's a different way to read. Okay, the next strategy, which is strategy number, I believe is number 4. Yes, it's called predictions. Okay, you probably have heard about this one. So, for example, in this one, uh, we have again, el circo social abre puertas en barrios vulnerables. Okay, we have the blue and we have the red that we have worked before. You don't always have to work with the same document, and that's why I make copies for my students, depending on the activity that we're going to be doing. Okay, so the idea is that we're going to read a paragraph, um, and we're going to make predictions in whatever we think has happened to Franco Ortiz in his life. So when we read the first paragraph, el circo social fue para Franco Ortiz una escuela de vida. Encontró una mirada distinta del mundo y una vocación. Bla, 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 bla. Donde él se encontraba con sus amigos y lo invitó a tomar una clase en la Escuela Circense Circo Social del Sur. Se acercó de curioso y desde ese día no dejó de hacer circo. Stop, stop, don't keep reading. Ok, chicos. Entonces, Frank Ortiz, desde los 11 años, 15 años, se relacionó con el circo. Y mira, desde ese momento, desde ese día no dejó de hacer otra cosa, no dejó de hacer circo. ¿Qué piensan ustedes que sucedió con Francisco, con Franco? Entonces los estudiantes empiezan a pensar, ok, well, y son cómicos, ¿no? Y a veces dicen, bueno, a Franco se lo comió un león. Bueno, es que este circo no tiene animales, porque es un circo que respeta a los animales, ¿sí? Entonces no hay animales, pero buena participación. ¿Qué pudo haber pasado con Franco? No, Franco se convirtió en el malabarista más importante de su circo y abrió otros circos y tiene mucho dinero ahora. ¿Ok? Predicciones. Que hablemos un poquito acerca de lo que nos está presentando cada uno de los párrafos. No leamos un párrafo solo para entenderlo y seguir leyendo. Paremos y hablemos. Ahora, predicciones conectadas con la vida del estudiante. Chicos, ¿qué hubiese pasado si tú tuvieras la misma experiencia de Franco Ortiz, que un día te encontraste con alguien del circo y te gustó mucho? ¿Crees que tu vida habría cambiado? ¿O en el futuro, crees que tu vida cambiará si algún día te encuentras con una persona que te motiva a presentar en el circo y a mostrarte ese mundo, es algo que te interesa, ¿cómo cambiaría tu vida? ¿Sí? ¿Serías soltero toda la vida porque viajan mucho? ¿Tendrías hijos? ¿Harías que tus hijos también fueran parte del circo? ¿Tendrías un seguro de vida supremamente caro para poder dejar mucho dinero a tu familia si tienes un accidente en el trapecio? Bueno, entonces que a través de la imaginación, a través de la predicción, a través de lo que ellos contemplan acerca del tema en sus vidas, ellos se están conectando más con la lectura que les estamos proponiendo y sobre todo están encontrando sentido en el tema y además están conectando y están siendo más empáticos con el protagonista del artículo. Ya van a ver a Frank Ortiz como una persona, no lo van a ver simplemente como un nombre en un artículo, sino como una persona. Algo muy interesante de estos artículos que ningún libro de texto lo he visto es que muchas veces tú puedes ir a YouTube y escribir algo, ¿no? Por ejemplo, escribir Francisco Ortiz, Circo, Barrancas, Barracas. Y me encontré, por ejemplo, con un TED Talk que él hizo. Está en español, ¿sí? Pero él hizo un TED Talk sobre sus experiencias. Entonces, ver a los personajes o a los temas que nos están presentando las lecturas desde otras formas, un video, una presentación, una ilustración, es lo que permite que nos conectemos. Claro, para esto vamos a necesitar un poquito más de tiempo que simplemente una clase para cada lectura, ¿verdad? Por lo menos unas 3 clases. Ahora, esto no es solamente trabajar desde esta perspectiva un poquito lúdica, pero yo también los quiero hacer responsables porque me demuestren que están entendiendo lo que estamos leyendo y sobre todo que están analizando y que estén viendo las diferentes perspectivas. Muchos de estos chicos no entienden la idea de un circo social, menos en mi escuela. Much less in my school, they don't understand the idea of circo social because uh, my school is a school where kids have the means to, study in a very good school and have access to many things. So when we talk about circo social, they cannot sometimes understand well how come a circus can help a specific community, in this case in Argentina. So these are great conversations that we can have with them. Okay, the next activity, which is number 5, is be the main character. So for be the main character, we have again the reading here, be the main character, and I read that first part, el circo social fue para Diego Ojeda una escuela de vida. Encontró una mirada distinta del mundo y una vocación. Este profesor nació en la Clínica Marley en Bogotá, Colombia. Tiene 2 hermanos y desde niño ha leído muchos libros con su papá. Cuando tenía 13 años, una persona pasó por el lugar donde él se encontraba con sus amigos y lo invitó a jugar ajedrez. Se acercó de curioso y desde ese día no dejó de practicar este juego. Entonces, claro, we're changing the story, we're personalizing the story. I ask them to do it in a way that is real to them. It's not fiction, but tell me your name, tell me things that are truth in your family. But the cool thing about this activity is that you keep the expressions and the idiomatic sentences untouched. Like, for example, desde ese día no dejó de. So, I tell them, do not change those expressions, just leave them there. When they apply those idiomatic expressions to their own context and the reading has the same structure of the original reading, then we connect better with the original reading. Okay? Remember that at the beginning of the webinar, I told you we must help our students to see themselves reflected on what we bring to the class. Sometimes we ask them, okay, what is your experience? What do you think about beauty? What is beautiful? Okay, perfect. But still is so abstract to them. um, we need to take them inside and okay, you are the main character of this reading. uh, let's change things that are related to you, that you can change here. And again, let's not touch the idiomatic sentences. Like, for example, here, the original reading says, Franco estudiaba la mañana, la tarde trabajaba unas horas y a la noche iba a las clases. Entonces, Diego estudiaba en la mañana, en la tarde iba para su casa, hacía sus tareas y en la noche dormía muy temprano porque era muy buen chico, ¿sí? Esas cosas. So we need to make sure that we allow this opportunity to our students to be the main character of the reading. So then we compare. So, nothing more helpful than the famous Venn diagram. So then we ask them to compare the original characters' um, life or, story with their own life. So you have Franco, the equilibrist, and you have Diego, the teacher. And then we compare. And it's interesting because if you talk about the reading, okay, fine. But when you ask questions related to their own life in front of the class, the kids are more interested in listening the story of their classmate. Okay. And we're comparing. So we're still working with the reading. Okay. Next one. Strategy number 6. Crazy conversations. Remember, you don't have to do all of these activities for one reading. Just choose. Crazy conversations. What is this about? For crazy conversations, we ask the students to work in pairs or to work in groups of 3 people. And we tell them, you're going to create a conversation where someone at some point is going to start saying things that are not true based on the reading. And someone else is going to correct them. For example, Carlos, no puedo creer lo que le pasó a Franco Ortiz. Dicen que era un astronauta antes de unirse al circo. Pero Lucía dice, eso no es cierto. Franco nunca fue un astronauta. Nació en la Villa 2124 de Barrancas y trabajaba como albañil con su papá. Ah, cierto, pero seguro que entró al circo porque quería convertirse en mago y hacer desaparecer edificios. No, tampoco. A los 13 años, alguien lo invitó a una clase en el Circo Social del Sur y desde ese día no dejó de hacer circo. Ah, ya me acordé. Luego ganó un concurso de talentos y se fue a vivir a Hollywood para ser actor de telenovelas. No, se formó en el circo, aprendió malabares, acrobacia. Entonces, una manera diferente de reorganizar la información de la lectura a través de una conversación lúdica que puede ser también cómica. Y por eso se llama Crazy Conversations, trabajando en grupos de no más de 3 estudiantes. Y es muy interesante ver las cosas con que salen los estudiantes, sobre todo aquellos que tienen la parte um, de desinformar, ¿no? Okay, sorry that sometimes I change just to explain in Spanish. Okay, here we go. Then we go with strategy number 7. We're almost done, my friends. Strategy number 7, extending vocabulary. So extending vocabulary consists in, I'm going to ask my students to work with the reading and to try to change some words of the original reading to use synonyms or to say the same thing in another way. Original text says, El Circo Social fue Francisco Ortiz una escuela de vida. Extending vocabulary. El Circo Social representó, instead of fue, para Franco Ortiz una escuela de aprendizaje. Nat, una escuela de vida aquí. Encontró una mirada distinta del mundo y una vocación, extending vocabulary. Descubrió una perspectiva diferente del entorno y una pasión. Este joven nació en la Villa 2124 de Barrancas, tiene 11 hermanos y desde niño trabajó como albañil con su papá. So, este muchacho, instead of joven, nació en la Villa 2120 de Barracas, tiene 11 hermanos y desde pequeño laboró en lugar de trabajo como obrero de construcción como su padre. Los estudiantes pueden trabajar en grupos para hacer esta actividad. Me ha parecido interesante que hay palabras que tienen diferentes sinónimos y hay formas diferentes de decir lo mismo. Entonces, no siempre el ejemplo que ellos van a dar de extending vocabulary activity is going to be the same one. It, it changes. Okay? When you say things in a different way, you connect better with the original text. If not, we know very well that when the students are the teachers, their peers understand better than when we try to explain something. And that's why sometimes we have these projects of teach the class, be the teacher. And sometimes they understand better. Just in class, you're explaining something and you see someone explaining, to another student, right? When you just explain it and then, hey, be quiet. No, I'm explaining. Oh, and then they understand what their classmate said instead of what you said it because it was said in a different way. So this is an advantage of this activity. So extending vocabulary. My friends, we're gonna finish with this number 8 activity, which is called questioning verbs. Oh, no, I think I have 9 activities. Let's see. Questioning verbs. So we're gonna take all the verbs from the reading. This is easily done via ChatGPT. You put the article on ChatGPT, you ask ChatGPT, give me a list of the verbs in the reading. You can ask ChatGPT, leave the tense that the verbs are presented on in the reading. And then we're going to either ask, as teachers, ask ChatGPT to ask questions based on the reading using each one of those verbs, the way they are presented in the reading, or we are going to ask the students to create these questions. ¿Por qué el circo social fue importante en la vida de Franco? ¿Qué encontró Franco en el circo social? ¿Dónde nació Franco Ortiz? ¿Cuántos hermanos tiene Franco? Okay, yes, you're going to say, well, this guy is saying that comprehension questions, we should avoid them. No, we should not avoid them. We should just play with them. And this is a playful and fun way to work with comprehension questions, where we intentionally take the verbs to work in each one of the questions. We could be doing it with adjectives. Let's take the adjectives and then let's create questions, making sure that each question includes one of the adjectives in the reading. Okay? So the idea is just to do it in different ways. And now, strategy number 9, and the last one. It's reading with actions. I remember when I used to teach in Wisconsin, mm, at that time, TPR started to be like a big thing. And I watched a video of an English teacher where the students were kind of like gesturing while they were talking. And I thought that was really interesting, because they were gesturing kind of like what they were saying. Like, for example, hello, how are you? I love you. You makes me smile. Are you sad? And they were having these conversations, but always, using different gestures. So I applied the same idea to reading. So they're gonna read to each other. They're gonna take turns reading the different paragraphs, but they're going to try to act some of the words in that paragraph. Like, for example, usually verbs, right? So, encontró, nació, trabajó, se encontraba, se acercó, aprendió. We need to make sure that we know what the gesture for each one of those verbs is. So, encontró mirar alrededor y hacer un gesto de sorpresa o señalando algo con el dedo. So you're gonna say, el circo social fue para Frank Ortiz una escuela de vida. Encontró, and the gesture is, encontró. Encontró una mirada distinta del mundo y una vocación. Este joven nació a hacer el gesto de cargar un bebé en brazos. Bueno, este joven nació en la Villa 2124 de Barrancas. Tiene 11 hermanos y desde niño trabajó simular con las manos la acción del albañil, como levantar ladrillos o usar una pala. So we agree on the actions for each one of the verbs. Then they read, take turns reading the paragraphs, but while they read, they make the gestures. Like, el circo social fue para Frank Ortiz una escuela de vida. Encontró una mirada distinta del mundo y una vocación. Este joven nació en la Villa 2124 de Barrancas. Tiene 11 hermanos y desde niño trabajó como albañil, como su papá, and so on. ¿Ok? Amigos, my friends, you're gonna say, this is so much work. No, ChatGPT will do this for you. ¿Ok? You tell ChatGPT. ChatGPT, my friend. I always say my friend because it gives me better things when I say my friend. ChatGPT, my friend, please locate those verbs that can be shown as actions in this reading, and then suggest the action for each one of those verbs. So that's what I did, and that's how I came up with this list. Okay? You don't have to do all the verbs. You can even tell ChatGPT, just give me the actions for the following verbs that I want to work on this particular reading. And that sticks to the student's brain when you actually use your hands, your body, there's movement, everything that we know about TPR. And if you don't know much, I suggest that you go and look for Profe Carmen Reyes videos on Roca Lingua, where she talks about TPR and TPR strategies to enhance acquisition. Okay, so thank you so much, my friends. Once again, my name is Diego Ojeda. And if we don't follow each other on Instagram, let's start following each other right now. My handle is Señor, and that's an underscore, SR underscore Ojeda. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing the screen. I'm gonna take a picture here. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen and I'm open to questions right now. Okay, I'm going to take a picture here. Okay. Okay, I took a picture and then I'm gonna stop sharing the screen and I'm gonna stop the recording. Okay, let's see, ¿dónde está recording? Aquí.